G'day. I had an idea for a story this morning, and I'm writing about, I don't know, 10, maybe not 10, but I'm writing about 5 stories, all at different stages at the moment. And I had this another idea, and I'm like, I'm not gonna have time to write this unless I'm like 1,000 years old. So I had an idea that I would just say it to the camera, put it out there, then I don't have to write it. So this is the story. So there's this album photo of this like modern rock band. They sort of play like, not hardcore rock, but it's just like modern indie rock. Oh, geez, they cough a lot. And the album cover is like just the band's just sort of sitting there, and like there's like someone standing, probably the drummer, I don't know, someone standing. The sort of line goes like this, and then down in this corner there's the dog. So some are sitting, some are standing, the dog's in this corner. And they're sitting in the studio, and it's just like a real plain sort of photo of the band in the studio. But just before the photo was taken, there was like this sort of argument in the studio where they were taking the photo. And the guitarist, he's like, we just need to take a picture of the dog. And the dog's name is Blue. We just need to take a picture of the dog and he can be on the album cover. And that starts this big argument. Or not an argument, but like a disagreement. And so earlier on in the album making process, they put a lot of Instagram photos out there of this dog, because like they just had this feeling, it's the drummer's dog, and they just had this feeling that like he was sort of like really soaking up the music, and he was just like really like in the music more than the band members. And then so he'd sort of like smile. He's a blue dog, and he'd sort of smile a bit, and he'd wag his tail a bit on particular songs, not necessarily happy songs, but songs that he liked, he would just be happy about. And then the band members were just like, is this just our imagination, or is this dog like really actually listening to our music and sort of giving us some feedback on what, you know, whether he likes the songs or not? And they're just like, yeah. And they went and had a break, and the guitarist of the group, he sort of, I know everyone in a band is different. The guitarist never had breaks. He would just like, everyone would be like, yep, cool, let's go grab a beer, or, you know, like a 15-minute break in the jam session. And the guitarist never would. He sort of would just sort of sit down and then just keep playing, whether it's like practicing what they were working on or some other completely different idea. I'm explaining myself, that's what I do when I'm in jam situations. He'd just sit down and just like play some chord progressions, just work through it. And he just had this boundless energy for creation. So it's like his break was just more creation. So anyway, he'd sit there, and this one break that he had, he was playing like, if you know anything about music, like major chords and minor chords. Most chord progressions are made up of majors and minors. A major is a happy chord. A minor is a sad chord, basically. And he was just playing this progression that he'd made up, and he looked at Blue Dog, and he's like, he looks back at me differently every time I play a major or a minor. So he stopped playing progressions, and he just went major chord, which is happy. And the dog looked at him, and he's like, not happy about it. And then he went same chord but minor, sad. And then the dog was like, yeah, that's the right chord. And he was like, am I tripping out? Am I talking to the dog? And then he just kept doing it, like, not, you wouldn't call it music, it was just sort of isolated chords. He'd just play happy and sad chords. And then the dog would give him feedback on every time he played it. And then he's like, oh, well, I'll just play progressions, like the same 4 chords with a mixture of major and minors over and over again. And he'd just do that and just look at the dog. The dog walked around him, and he's just looking at him. And then he played like the 3rd chord was like an A minor, and he's like, the dog would just like almost like not growl, but his eyes were a bit like, oh, that's not the right chord. What I'm trying to say is the dog was sort of listening to the music. And he he just played the 4 chords again, got to the 3rd chord. The dog was just like, what? That's the wrong chord, bro. It's not the wrong chord, it's the wrong major minor that needs to be major. Or the opposite of what I said before. And then he's just like, oh, and he just kept playing, and then the dog was doing nothing because the song sounded right, the chord progression sounded right. So the dog almost stopped listening. He just walked around and sort of sniffed the drum kit and just walked around. And then when everyone got back from their ciggies, their break, he was like, guys, you need to see this. And he played this chord progression, and he said, watch Blue, watch what he does. And obviously the dog did nothing. He just looked at the band members, looked at the thing, and the dog was like, cool, whatever. And then he realized he'd played, because he was playing the chord progression that the dog liked. The dog just didn't care. He was like, yeah, that's correct. So he's like, oh, now I have to play a song that sounds wrong so that the band members can see. And he went through the whole process of just playing isolated chords, and the band members like slowly were like, well, first of all, they were just like, you're an idiot. Like, you need to have a break. Come have a ciggy. Let's all go have another break so you can get your mind back on track. He's like, nah. Watch it. And he went through the process, and slowly but surely the band members and even the drummer who owns the dog was like, fucking hell, like this dog understands the music. So they all sat around and played like a different chord progression, and the dog did the same process again. He was like, nah, the first chord that you're playing in this circle of 4 chords is not right. And everyone's like, but it is right, musically it makes sense. And they're just like, nah. Or the dog's like, nah. You need to play 2 majors. The dog was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then another one, the singer said to the group, he said, they're all convinced, and the singer says to the group, why don't you just like play, not even 4 chords, just keep playing chords and see what the dog does. And so that he said, oh, okay. I said, I don't know how I would just make up random chords. And but he gave it a go. And then he started just playing random chords, and the dog was just like, sort of like, yeah, this makes sense. And then they realized that the dog was actually moving left and sort of jumping to his left when he liked stuff, and then like going to his right and stopping moving when he didn't like stuff. It was the new language. And they're just like, cool, all right. And he's like jumping to the left, staying on the right. So he changed his guitar playing according to the dog. And then the dog was like, then the singer said to the guitarist, keep playing anything that makes the dog turn to the left. And then he just ended up playing this like one chord with just like a mixture of majors and minors. And the dog was just like bouncing around to the left, just going, yeah. So it was like basically 1 to 2 chords, all majors and minors, and the dog spinning to the left. And the whole band was just like, are we just like playing music and the dog's just jumping around in circles? What's going on here? And they're like, whatever. Anyway, so that's the backstory. And all through, even previous to this, the dog was part of the band, as in like, they've got an Instagram account, this band, and they were like, every time something happened, like the ashtray got spilt over and the dog was like, Blue Dog was like causing it and just being right amongst it. So they take photos of him and put a cigarette in his paws and like making him pose for Instagram. And he was just part of the process the whole way through. And they actually put more pictures of him on Instagram than anyone else in the band. So then when it came to this argument just before the album photo, the one of them's like, well, we just need to take a picture of the dog. He's been the whole thing. And then the drummer who owns the dog's like, nah. He's part of the whole thing. We're all part of this. So it can't just be a photo of the dog. It's a photo of all of us, and he's a band member. So our photo will just be like someone standing, the way we all sit, And then Blue Dog, he can sit wherever he wants. If he doesn't want to be in the photo, then he won't be in the photo. So let's take the photo. So they took the photo, and that's the end of the story. And I was trying to think of a cool name for the band where I could like loop it around and it'd just be like the coolest end to the story. But if you have an idea of what the band could be called and what the album could be called, then let me know in the comments. And I'm really proud of myself because I don't have to write this story out now. It's out there. And I do have to go brush my hair and get this beanie off. You don't need to see that. But yeah, in the comments, band name, album name, dog name. Because Blue Dog's a little bit boring, to tell you the truth. Thanks for listening.